Welcome to today's explainer. So, right out of the gate, I want you to take everything you think you know about YouTube. The viral trends, the hyper-polished influencers, the exhausting rat race of chasing the algorithm, and just completely set it aside for a minute. Because today, we're diving into a totally different perspective from YouTuber Alexa Saarenoja. She lays out this radical framework that completely shifts content creation from a tedious digital chore into this intense, profound crucible for your own personal and professional rebirth. Okay, let's dive into this. Alexa's core thesis is actually pretty provocative. She argues that creating content isn't really about marketing strategy at all. It's actually a forced evolution. It's this deep, rigorous psychological journey where you literally have to confront exactly who you are, drop that stiff professional act, and finally share your authentic self with the world. And this really hits home for a lot of us, right? Especially for highly educated professionals hitting their 40s or beyond. You might have the degrees, the successful career, the stable life, but suddenly you find yourself living entirely on autopilot. You just feel kind of numb. You're checking off the daily tasks, but the passion, it's flatlined. Well, stepping in front of a camera completely disrupts that numbness. It forces you to wake up, it challenges you to pick up new skills, clarify your actual thoughts, and most importantly, rediscover a voice that you might have buried under decades of professional expectations. Section 1. The camera as a brutal mirror. When people struggle to actually hit record, they almost always blame the tech. Oh, the lighting is bad, or my microphone isn't working. But the camera lens isn't a technical hurdle at all. It's actually a precise, brutal mirror. That hesitation you feel, it's a literal map of exactly where you still fear judgment. It's where your inner critic flares up. Because when you stare down a lens, it incinerates those masks we all wear in everyday life, and it forces you to confront your own ego. You just cannot hide your energy from the camera, and that is exactly what makes it the ultimate tool for self-discovery. Section 2. The Viking Principle. And this brilliantly illustrates two distinctly different paths you can take. On one side, we have the going pro trap. This is exactly what drains so many professionals. They put on this curated, overly sanitized identity just to feel qualified. It's basically like wearing stiff, painful shoes all day long. It's completely exhausting, and it keeps you endlessly chasing whatever the algorithm wants. But on the other side is what Alexa calls the Viking principle. This is all about embodying your unshakable truth. It's dropping the act entirely. It's leading with the raw, grounded certainty of your lived experience. You aren't acting like an expert. You're simply being you, unapologetically. Which brings us to a massive, fundamental truth about human connection. We are all highly attuned to authenticity. We can smell a fake a mile away. When you try to deliver this flawless, hyper-scripted performance, your audience's guard immediately goes up. But when you close the gap between who you are in private and who you are on camera, everything shifts. That is how you transition from just getting empty, passive consumption from random viewers to actually building deep engagement with a soul-aligned audience. Section 3. Your proof capital. We have been so heavily conditioned to believe that clients are basically buying our resumes, our university degrees, our polished CVs. But in the modern digital economy, what people actually buy is certainty. And that certainty, it comes entirely from your proof capital. Think of it as your invisible list of credentials. It's the unique value born not from sitting in a classroom, but purely from your personal struggles, your turning points, and those hard-won insights you've earned. Information is everywhere for free now, but the absolute clarity that comes from someone who has actually walked through the fire, that is absolutely priceless. Let's move to and see how this builds into something actionable. Mapping out your own proof of capital essentially happens in 3 distinct chapters. First is the struggle, that turning point or that specific pain that finally forced you to change. Second is the journey. And look, this isn't the shiny highlight reel. This is the messy middle where you actually had to figure things out. And finally, the gift, the unique perspective and specialized knowledge that you now hold because you went through that journey. When you teach from this 3-chapter structure, you aren't just reciting facts anymore. You're providing a deeply anchored, highly trusted perspective. Section 4. The high-ticket philosophy. Look, if you are absolutely exhausted by this whole influencer culture that tells you to dance for clicks or post nonstop clickbait, consider this your official permission slip to just stop. You do not need to be a viral guru. You literally just need to become a mirror for the right eyes. You are reflecting the solution back to people who are currently hitting the exact same wall that you've already broken through. You're optimizing for deep trust here, not fleeting attention. So, The crucial point is that the math of this approach completely flips the script. You do not need millions of passive views generating fractions of a penny on AdSense. To build a highly profitable, completely sustainable business, you might literally only need 5 soul-aligned clients paying you $1,000 for your specialized coaching or consulting, or maybe 10 clients at $500. It shifts the math entirely. When you show up embodying the Viking principle, speaking your authentic truth, you naturally attract these highly committed clients and you effortlessly repel the dabblers. Section 5. Plugging your energy leaks. Okay, this is a truly fascinating psychological insight. If you are just tolerating minor, seemingly trivial physical stressors in your daily life, you are actually subconsciously capping your business growth. Think about it. Wearing stiff, ill-fitting shoes all day, or as Alexa mentions in her work, holding on to worn-out basics like old underwear? When you tolerate these little daily discomforts, you are constantly sending this microsignal to your subconscious that you simply aren't worthy of better. That drains your creative energy. And trust me, your audience will actually feel that subtle lack of self-worth right through the screen. Section 6. Truth, Rebel, Action Plan. So this entire roadmap is built for what are called the Truth Rebels. This is a powerful movement of creators who absolutely refused to shrink themselves. They're dropping the exhausting professional act, they stop filtering their own light to fit into someone else's mold, and they are turning their raw, unapologetic authenticity into a serious income stream. If you are ready to finally stop acting and start just being, this is your path. Now, what's really interesting about these actionable steps is that they aren't your typical run-of-the-mill marketing tips. These are 3 concrete, genuinely sweat-inducing steps to reconnect with your intuitive compass today. Number 1, conduct an energy audit right now. Find one minor physical stressor, like a wobbly chair or a scratchy shirt, and either fix it or throw it out to signal your worth to your subconscious. Number 2, the heart palpitation challenge. I want you to write down 3 opinions about your industry that you are terrified to say out loud, and then put the absolutely scariest one in your very next recording. And number 3, take an input fast. Just mute the external noise of social media and the news for 1 week so you can finally hear your own inner voice again. So I want to leave you with one final, pretty challenging thought. The gap between who you are in private and that heavily sanitized, polished version you present to the world, that gap is exactly where your real impact and your real business actually lives. The world really doesn't need another fake, sanitized expert. It just needs you. So what is the most unfiltered truth that you are absolutely terrified to say out loud? Find it, hit record, and let it incinerate the mask. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.
So look, the most brutal, completely mask-incinerating personal development retreat on Earth, it actually doesn't require a plane ticket to some remote mountaintop.
Right, no ashrams.
Exactly. It doesn't require walking on hot coals, and it certainly doesn't require sitting in a silent meditation hall for, 10 days.
Which is what everyone thinks of, right?
Yeah. But really, it just requires a tripod, a lens, and an upload button.
It's so much more accessible, but honestly, way more terrifying for most people.
Oh, completely. So whether you are prepping for a massive career shift, or maybe you're looking to break out of a midlife rut, or, even if you're just insanely curious about the mechanics of human behavior and psychology, today's deep dive is going to completely dismantle and rebuild how you think about authenticity, vulnerability, and self-growth.
It really does. It fundamentally rewires our modern definition of what it actually means to be visible. Because, when we think of putting a camera in our face, the immediate cultural association is just, well, it's narcissism.
Oh, yeah, vanity.
Exactly. It's vanity. It's chasing some algorithm or participating in a viral trend.
Right. It's the whole influencer caricature.
Yeah, exactly. But today, we are stripping all of that away. We're going to look at the underlying psychological mechanism of the camera lens itself.
It's just fascinating.
It is. We're exploring the philosophy of a YouTuber and business mentor named Alexa Saarenoja. And her core thesis is that the camera is this brutal, beautiful mirror.
A brutal mirror, yeah.
Yeah, and stepping in front of it is the ultimate crucible for self-growth. Because it forces you to transition, you have to move from being a passive consumer of other people's lives into a person who must embody this unshakable, what she calls a Viking-like presence.
I love that term, Viking-like. And here is the real hook for those of you listening who are, highly pragmatic. We are going to explore how that raw, unfiltered authenticity isn't just good for your soul. It actually naturally translates into premium high-ticket income.
Which is the dream, right?
Yeah, exactly. We are talking about the concept of the truth rebels.
The truth rebels. I mean, this is the foundational identity in her entire framework.
Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, it is a community, or really a mindset, of people who have actively chosen to drop the professional act. They are just finished with the hyperscripted, over-polished, stiff personas that we are all taught to adopt in the corporate world.
The corporate armor.
Right, the armor. Instead, they show up as their actual, flawed, highly opinionated, lived-in selves. And the fascinating paradox of this digital age is that by dropping the act, they actually generate significantly more revenue, simply for being who they are.
That's wild.
It is. They turn radical, unapologetic authenticity into a totally sustainable business model.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can talk about making premium income or adopting a Viking persona, we really have to look at the starting line.
Right, the environment that forces this change.
Exactly. We have to look at the environment that necessitates this kind of radical shift. And for a huge demographic, particularly those in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, that starting line is a place of profound psychological numbness. It's the midlife autopilot.
The slump. It's a highly documented psychological state, and it's so insidious because it doesn't look like a crisis from the outside.
It looks like success, usually.
Exactly. You reach a point where you have checked all the societal boxes. You got the degree, you built a career, maybe you started the family, you built the container.
Right, yeah.
And then one day you realize you are functioning entirely on autopilot.
It's the ultimate Groundhog Day. I mean, the alarm goes off and you execute the routine flawlessly, but you aren't actually present for any of it.
You're just a ghost in your own life.
Yes. And Alexa's own origin story in our source material perfectly encapsulates this creeping numbness. So she was 45 years old, an American expat living in Finland. She had been an architecture instructor for over a decade, a mother of 3.
A very full life on paper.
Exactly. And then she gets laid off. But what's crucial here is that she notes even before the layoff, she was experiencing this terrifying absence of ambition.
Just a total flatline.
Yeah. She described herself as an alpha, highly driven woman who suddenly realized she had absolutely 0 goals.
Which, if we look at it clinically, is often much more dangerous to the human psyche than a sudden, tangible catastrophe.
Wait, really? More dangerous?
Oh, absolutely. When you are driven by a sudden crisis, your nervous system activates, right? You have a clear direction. You are moving away from the immediate threat.
You're running from a bear.
Exactly. But apathy, numbness, that is a slow starvation of the spirit. The brain actually begins to prune neural pathways when we stop learning and stop exposing ourselves to novel challenges.
Oh, wow. So it's a physiological thing, too.
Yes. This is why time seems to speed up as we age. The brain just stops recording new distinct memories because every single day is exactly the same.
That is terrifying.
It is. She mentions this incredibly poignant thought she had during this slump. She felt that if she were to just disappear, people wouldn't actually notice her being gone.
Right. They would notice the mechanical outputs of her existence.
Exactly.
Like they'd notice the laundry wasn't folded, they'd notice the architecture syllabus wasn't updated. But the essence of her, the actual human woman performing all these invisible, repetitive tasks, she felt entirely invisible to the world and honestly, maybe even to herself.
And this brings us to the psychological shock therapy of making videos.
The wake-up call.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why does a camera disrupt the slump? Because when you sit down and press record, you absolutely cannot be on autopilot. It is functionally impossible.
You have to be present.
You have to be. It demands an entirely new set of cognitive skills. Learning the cadence of speech, organizing complex thoughts into a narrative. But much more profoundly, it demands extreme self-reflection. It forces you to excavate a voice that you have likely buried under decades of playing specific roles.
The roles are the trap, aren't they? I mean, you're a taxi driver for your kids, you're an agreeable employee for your boss, you're a compromising partner for your spouse.
So many hats.
So many hats. You have all these distinct compartmentalized voices designed to just keep the peace. But the camera doesn't care about your roles. The camera demands to know, in a vacuum, who are you?
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it explains why midlife, or a mid-career transition, is the ultimate crucible for this specific kind of rebirth.
How so?
Well, psychologically speaking, and Carl Jung wrote extensively about this, the first half of life is entirely about building the container. It's about establishing your ego, securing your survival, adapting to societal expectations.
Getting the job, paying the mortgage.
Exactly. But the second half of life, that is supposed to be the integration phase. It's about discovering what the container is actually for.
Oh, I like that.
Right. When those defined roles are suddenly stripped away, like losing a job of 10 years, what remains? The tragedy is that society often tells people over 40, and especially women over 40, that their integration phase should be quiet.
Yeah, just step aside.
Yeah, they're encouraged to just fade into the background.
Just put on a beige cardigan, lower your voice, and graciously exit stage left.
Exactly. But Alexa's philosophy argues the exact opposite, and it's a very compelling economic argument as well. She argues that this demographic is sitting on an untapped gold mine of lived experience.
Battle scars.
Yeah. You have survived recessions, you've navigated grief, you've learned complex human dynamics the hard way. You possess a deeply textured perspective that, frankly, a 22-year-old with a ring light and a TikTok account simply cannot replicate.
They just haven't lived it yet.
Right. The world is starved for that specific battle-tested wisdom.
Okay, I hear that, but I have to push back hard here.
Go for it.
Because when you say midlife transformation and buying a camera to start a YouTube channel, my skeptical brain immediately throws up a red flag.
Which is fair.
Right. Like, is this not just the digital equivalent of a midlife crisis? Is starting a YouTube channel at 45 any different psychologically than a guy going out and buying a bright red Porsche? Isn't it just a vanity project to try and feel relevant and young again?
This raises an important question, and honestly, it's the exact skepticism that stops highly intelligent people from ever sharing their knowledge online.
Because they don't want to look desperate.
Exactly. But let's break down the underlying psychological mechanics of those two actions, because they are diametrically opposed. A stereotypical midlife crisis, buying the sports car, blowing up your life, is almost always an exercise in pure escapism.
You're trying to literally outrun the reality of your own aging.
Yes. You are trying to distract yourself with external speed, noise, status symbols. You are running away from your internal reality.
Okay, I track that.
But think about the physical act of setting up a camera on a tripod in your quiet living room. You sit down. You are alone. You look into a piece of glass and you press record.
No distractions.
Zero. That is the exact antithesis of escapism. You cannot run away. You are staring directly into your own eyes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you are forcing yourself to articulate your private thoughts, your deeply held beliefs, and your insecurities out loud into a void that will eventually reflect the brutal, unfiltered reaction of the public back onto you.
That is heavy.
It is. The sports car is running away. The camera is a forced, inescapable, and often painful introspection.
Wow. Okay, when you frame it like that, it's a completely different paradigm. It's the difference between self-medicating and, like, performing open-heart surgery on your own psyche. Yeah. If you are doing it right, the camera doesn't let you hide.
It does not let you hide. And that is exactly why the initial friction of creating content is so incredibly high for most adults.
Which leads us perfectly into analyzing the actual friction. Because to truly understand why the camera is the opposite of escapism, we have to look at the somatic, physiological realities of what happens the very second you think about pressing that record button.
The physical panic.
Yeah. The sources make a very bold claim here. They state that when people struggle to make videos, it is almost never a technology issue.
People love to blame the technology. It's the ultimate socially acceptable shield.
Right. Like, oh, I really want to launch this channel, but my microphone has a weird echo, or the lighting in my home office is just too yellow. I can't possibly film today.
So they go buy another light.
Exactly. They will spend 6 months researching camera lenses to avoid filming a 3-minute video.
Because researching lenses feels like productivity, you know?
Yeah.
But it's actually just sophisticated procrastination.
Hiding.
Exactly. What Alexa's framework reveals is that your struggles with filming are actually highly precise topographical maps of your own internal landscape.
Topographical maps. I love that imagery.
Yeah, they map exactly where you still fear the judgment of the tribe. They map where you fear being invisible, and conversely, the terrifying realization of where you fear being seen too clearly.
She uses this wild, deeply uncomfortable metaphor in the sources to describe this fear. She calls it the tarantula.
Oh, the tarantula.
Yeah. And the concept is that you cannot just acknowledge your fear from a safe distance. You can't stand across the room, point at the massive, hairy tarantula in the corner and say, yep, my anxiety is right there. I see it.
Because that doesn't actually do anything.
Right. That doesn't neutralize it. She says you actually have to walk over, pick the tarantula up, hold it in your bare hands, and dance with it. You have to realize that this dark, terrifying, untouched side of your psyche is actually a foundational part of your unique resonance.
It's a visceral, almost repulsive image, the tarantula.
It makes my skin crawl just talking about it.
Mine too.
Mm.
But it perfectly captures the somatic experience of facing the lens. Because when we talk about this fear, we aren't talking about a vague sense of unease. We are dealing with highly specialized inner voices that launch a coordinated, sophisticated attack on your nervous system the second you think about becoming visible.
Like an ambush.
Yes. Let's break down the psychology of these specific attackers. First, you have the critic.
Oh, the critic and I are old friends.
We all are. The critic is the voice that evaluates your worthiness before you've even opened your mouth. It weaponizes your own intelligence against you.
How does it do that?
It says, you aren't ready. You don't have the specific PhD required to talk about this. Look at so-and-so. They have 10 years more experience and higher production value. Who do you think you are to teach this?
Right. It demands that you stay in this state of perpetual silent preparation forever.
Exactly. It uses logic to enforce paralysis. Then you have the second voice, which is the approval seeker.
Okay, the approval seeker.
Now, this voice isn't concerned with your academic qualifications at all. It's obsessed with the social dynamics of the tribe.
It wants everyone to like you.
Yes. It imagines every possible viewer, your former colleagues, your college roommates, your mother-in-law, and it tries to aggressively water down your message so that absolutely nobody could possibly be offended or disagree.
Oh, I felt that.
Right. It asks, what will my industry peers say if I take a polarizing stance? Will my old boss think I've gone crazy? The approval seeker edits your truth into beige, invisible nothingness.
And then there is the final boss, which is the perfectionist, which, according to her notes, is sneaky because it doesn't usually attack before you film. It waits until you've done the hard part. It attacks after.
Yes, it's an ambush predator. You finally rally the courage to hit record, you speak your truth, you finish, and you feel a fleeting moment of pride.
Like, I did it!
Yeah. And then the perfectionist forces you to watch the footage back.
Oh, no.
And it highlights every single, every time you glanced away from the lens, every micro stutter. It convinces you that unless the video is a flawless, cinematic masterpiece of human communication, it is an embarrassment that must be immediately deleted.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The camera acts like this ruthlessly strict personal trainer for your nervous system. You cannot cheat your emotional reps.
It really can.
If you are terrified or if you are faking your enthusiasm, you can't hide it. The camera is fundamentally a polygraph test for your soul.
That is an incredibly accurate analogy. The lens captures far more data than just your words.
Like what?
It captures the micro-expressions on your face that last a fraction of a second. It captures the tension in your trapezius muscles. It captures the shallowness of your breathing, the artificial, rehearsed pacing of your voice.
So your body gives you away.
This is the physiological reality of the autonomic nervous system. If you do not process your underlying fear or your imposter syndrome before you hit record, that cortisol spike will inevitably leak out through your energy.
And the viewer picks up on it instantly, right? Even if they don't know anything about microexpressions.
Absolutely. The viewer's brain is an evolutionary machine designed to detect authenticity and threat. They might not consciously know why they're clicking away from your video, but their mirror neurons in their nervous system will pick up on the dissonance.
They just feel something is off.
They feel that you are performing a character rather than connecting as a human. They feel the anxiety behind the smile.
Let's make this tangible for the listener. If you are listening to this right now, whether you are driving to work, walking your dog, or sitting at your desk, I want you to try an experiment.
This is a great exercise.
Imagine that I am sitting across from you. I set up a professional camera. I point the lens right at you. The red tally light blinks on, and I tell you, okay, you have 3 minutes to speak your absolute, unvarnished, controversial truth about your industry to the entire world. No script, no editing, go.
For a lot of people, just visualizing that specific scenario triggers a measurable spike in heart rate.
Pay attention to your body right now. Where do you feel the tension settling? Does your throat suddenly feel tight? Do your shoulders creep up towards your ears? Does your stomach drop?
That's the fear manifesting.
Exactly. That physical reaction, that spike of adrenaline, that is the map we are talking about. That is a tarantula sitting in the corner of your mind.
And this is precisely why Alexa emphasizes that the most critical part of the entire process is the pause before the output.
The moment right before you hit record.
Yes. Most modern creators, When they feel that anxiety, they rush into the technical side. They tweak their lighting. They rewrite their hooks. They obsess over the algorithm. They do everything possible to avoid the emotional reality of the moment.
Right, avoiding the tarantula.
But radical authenticity requires you to sit in that chair for 2 minutes, look at the lens, and ask yourself a very hard question. What truth am I actively avoiding right now? What part of me is trying to prove my worth to strangers?
Because if you don't answer that, the video is doomed before you even speak.
Exactly. If you record from a place of pressure, proving, and anxiety, your audience feels the clutter of your nervous system. But if you process the fear, hold the tarantula, and record from a place of clarity, processing, and grounding, they feel trust. They feel grounded by your grounding.
Okay, so let's say I do the work. I face the brutal mirror, I process the fear, and I realize that the hyper-polished corporate character I've been playing for 20 years just won't survive on camera. I have to fundamentally change how I show up in the world.
The big shift.
Yeah, this leads us to the absolute core of her framework, the methodology for replacing that character, which she calls the Viking principle.
The Viking principle. It's a fantastic, evocative concept.
It really is.
At its core, the principle is based on a very simple psychological truth. Your audience does not trust a performance no matter how flawless it is. They only trust a person who is deeply anchored in exactly who they are.
It reminds me of what she calls the going pro trap. I see this all the time on LinkedIn and YouTube.
Oh, everywhere.
Someone decides they're going to take their personal brand or their business seriously. And immediately they adopt this hyper-scripted, bizarrely stiff identity.
They turn into a robot.
Yes. They start using jargon they would never use in real life. Alexa compares this to wearing stiff, visually beautiful, but incredibly painful shoes. You might look the part of the expert, but every single step is agonizing, and frankly, everyone watching can tell you are walking funny.
It is the tragedy of the curated identity. We adopt it because we think it shields us from criticism.
Well, if I play the expert, they can't hurt me.
Exactly. If they criticize the expert persona, they aren't criticizing the real us. But the goal, according to the Viking principle, is to entirely collapse the gap between your private, off-camera self and your public on-camera persona.
Just merge them completely.
Think about the specific energy you have when you are sitting at a coffee shop with your closest friend, debating a topic you deeply care about.
You're animated, you lean in, you probably curse a little, you wave your hands around. You certainly don't filter your opinions through a PR committee.
Exactly. You are highly magnetic in that moment because your nervous system is relaxed in its own truth. There is zero friction between your thoughts and your expression.
Right.
But the moment the camera turns on, people abandon that magnetism. They stiffen their spine, they modulate their voice, and they try to become a sterile news anchor delivering a corporate press release.
Which is exactly what creates what the framework calls safe content. And we have to talk about why safe content is basically a death sentence for a business today.
We must differentiate carefully between safe content and brave content, because understanding this dichotomy is the difference between being ignored and being highly profitable.
Okay, define safe content for us.
Safe content is highly transactional. It is polished, it is inoffensive, it is completely neutral, it is highly educational, often packed with great statistics, but it is completely devoid of the creator's actual personality or worldview.
Like a textbook.
Exactly. And the fatal flaw of safe content in the modern era is that it is functionally invisible.
Especially right now. We are in the era of generative AI. If I want a perfectly neutral, highly educational script about, I don't know, the history of architecture or the principles of marketing, ChatGPT can write it for me in 3 seconds. It will be flawless, grammatically perfect, and entirely safe.
What's fascinating here is that AI has commoditized polish and information. You can no longer compete on simply being a conduit for facts.
Because a machine does it better and faster.
Right. AI can replicate the data, but it absolutely cannot replicate the texture of a lived human life. It cannot replicate a genuine, messy, polarizing point of view born from actual experience. A genuine opinion is proof of life in the digital age.
Proof of life? Wow.
It is the only proof that a breathing, complex human being is behind the screen. That is brave content. Brave content is relational, not transactional. It is highly opinionated. It is polarizing.
The sources mention that people-pleasing is extraordinarily expensive in business. And I want to dig into that because we are taught from day one of our careers to be accommodating.
Don't rock the boat.
Yeah, play nice. But in content creation, if you are pleasing everyone, your content is so generic that your ideal client can't even identify you in the lineup. You sound like everybody else.
And stepping out of that people-pleasing mindset requires a massive, often painful psychological reframe around the concept of rejection.
Rejection is tough.
Biologically, we are tribal animals.
Yeah.
We're wired to fear rejection because thousands of years ago, being rejected by the tribe meant starvation and death.
Literal death, yeah.
But in this digital ecosystem, with billions of people online, the unsubscribe button is not a failure. It is a vital, necessary filter.
A filter. Let's pause on that. That is a massive paradigm shift.
If someone unsubscribes from your channel or leaves a negative comment because you shared a strong, authentic opinion about your industry, you have to realize they were never going to buy your high-ticket service anyway.
They weren't your people.
They were never going to align with your methodology. Their departure is a victory. It clears the static out of the room, making space for the people who resonate deeply with your specific frequency.
That's a huge relief, honestly.
It should be. The goal of the Viking presence isn't to build a massive audience of lukewarm followers. The goal is to magnetize the right ones fiercely and to actively, intentionally repel the wrong ones.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate again because this is where a lot of people get tripped up.
Here.
If the goal is to be a Viking, to be completely unpolished, raw, unfiltered, and just letting all our strong opinions fly, won't people just think we are a chaotic mess? Won't they think we're wildly unprofessional? Where is the line between being authentically Viking and just using the camera as an unhinged diary?
This raises an important question, and it is the exact rationalization that keeps brilliant people trapped in those stiff shoes.
It's a real fear.
It is. The massive misconception in the personal branding space is that authenticity equates to a lack of strategy, or worse, a lack of care for the audience.
Just venting into a microphone.
Right, but that is not what Alexa is advocating at all. She clarifies this tension beautifully with a metaphor. Authenticity is the fire, and strategy is the container.
Ooh, I like that. Fire and container. Break down the mechanics of that.
You still need the container. You still edit your videos to remove dead air. You still plan your content structure so it makes logical sense. You still invest in good lighting and clear audio because you respect your audience's time and sensory experience.
Right, that's just basic respect.
You show up on time. You deliver what you promise. That is the container of professionalism. But the energy burning inside that video, the fire, is your unshakable truth.
It's the core message.
Yes. You aren't hedging your bets. You aren't using corporate jargon to soften the blow of your opinions. You are utilizing strategic frameworks to deliver your raw, lived experience as efficiently as possible. You're highly professional in your delivery, but entirely unfiltered in your core beliefs.
Okay, that distinction makes perfect sense. The container is for the audience's comfort. The fire is your truth. So you face the brutal mirror. You've thrown away the stiff shoes. You are showing up as a Viking, burning your fire inside a strategic container. How does this actually translate into a sustainable business?
The monetization piece.
Yeah, how do you monetize this raw truth? Because we aren't just talking about getting a few likes or building a hobby channel. We are talking about generating real revenue.
This is the pivot. We have to transition from the internal psychology of the creator to the behavioral psychology of the buyer. We enter the realm of what the framework calls the so high-ticket philosophy.
The so what philosophy.
Yeah.
Basically, a viewer watches your perfectly crafted, highly educational video. They look at your impressive LinkedIn credentials, your master's degree, and they shrug and say, so what? Why should I care?
Exactly. When we are discussing high-ticket sales, and by high-ticket, we generally mean services, consulting, mentorship, or coaching priced at $3,000, $5,000, or significantly more, clients are operating on a completely different psychological wavelength.
They aren't bargain hunting.
No. They're not making a logical purchase based on the sheer volume of information provided. They frankly do not care about your CV. They do not care how many modules are in your digital course or how many downloadable PDFs they get.
Because, as we established, information is a commodity. It's everywhere. If I want to know the 10 steps to market a business, I can find it for free on Google or YouTube in 10 seconds.
Precisely. Information is ubiquitous and essentially worthless on its own. But transformation, a guided journey from point A to point B, transformation is incredibly rare.
That's what they're really buying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Clients at that premium price point are buying one thing: certainty. They are buying the deep, resonant connection to your lived experience. They are buying the absolute belief that because you have walked through the specific fire they are currently standing in, You have the map to guide them out.
And this brings up a fascinating concept in her framework called the invisible list, or mapping your proof capital.
Yes. The invisible list.
It's essentially taking a rigorous inventory of why you are uniquely qualified to help people, but it has absolutely nothing to do with universities, certifications, or traditional accolades. It is structured around the 3 chapters framework.
The 3 chapters is a brilliant, deeply introspective exercise for uncovering where your true market value actually lies. Let's break down the psychology of it. Chapter 1 is the struggle.
Okay, the struggle.
This is the valley. It's the turning point you went through. It is the moment of failure, the health crisis, the bankruptcy, or the deep, soul-crushing frustration that initiated your journey.
Why do we start with the struggle? Because normally people try to hide their struggles. They want to start the story at the top of the mountain looking successful.
Because of the neuroscience of empathy. When you share a genuine struggle, you activate mirror neurons in the listener's brain. You immediately disarm their skepticism because you are demonstrating vulnerability.
You're humanizing yourself.
You are saying, I have been in the dark place too. That shared pain is the foundation of trust. If you only show the mountaintop, you are just bragging, and bragging isolates the viewer.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so chapter 2 is the journey. This is the messy middle. How did you actually move through that struggle? What specific steps did you take? What embarrassing mistakes did you make? And what did you learn while you were fighting in the trenches?
And that leads to chapter 3, which is the gift. Because you survived that specific struggle, and because you navigated that specific journey, what is the resulting superpower or unique lens you now possess?
The thing you can give back.
Exactly. What nuance can you see with crystal clarity that the rest of the industry, who only study the theory in a textbook, completely misses?
So what does this all mean for the listener who is trying to figure out their own brand? It means a complete inversion of what we value. It means your past pain, your most awkward phases, your colossal, humiliating failures. Those are not things to hide. Those are actually your primary, most valuable business assets.
They are the bedrock of your authority. Let's look at the specific example provided in the source material, because it perfectly illustrates the psychological difference between academic theory and lived experience in the high-ticket space.
Yes, let's use a real example.
Imagine a coach whose niche is helping high-achieving corporate women break free from people-pleasing and burnout.
Okay, a very common, very necessary niche.
She could sit in front of the camera, adopt her going pro stiff persona, and make a video titled How Anxious Attachment Patterns Create Fawning Responses in High-Achieving Women.
I mean, I would probably click on that. It sounds smart. It sounds like she knows her clinical psychology.
It sounds incredibly smart.
Yeah.
It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that she understands academic theory. But here is the critical failure. Her ideal client, the exhausted executive who is currently burning out from constantly saying yes to every project, is not sitting on her couch searching YouTube for fawning responses.
No, she's typing what Alexa calls a 2 a.m. raw question into the search bar.
Exactly. She is typing, why can't I stop lying awake at 2 a.m. replaying conversations where I couldn't say no? Or, why do I feel physically sick when my boss emails me?
That's the real language of the pain.
Yes. If the coach uses academic jargon like anxious attachment, she stays safe, she sounds smart to her peers, but she utterly fails to connect with the person in pain. But if the coach uses the visceral language of lived experience, if she describes the literal physical exhaustion of resentment, the exact racing thoughts her client is having at 2 a.m., she collapses the psychological distance instantly.
The viewer feels seen.
The viewer watches and thinks, oh my God, she doesn't just know the theory of my problem, she actually gets my reality. That specific moment of connection is the exact mechanism that converts a casual viewer into a high-ticket client.
Because the client doesn't want the guru standing on top of the mountain yelling academic theories down at them. They want the person who is just one step ahead of them on the path, reaching a hand back into the dark.
Yes. They want the Viking who has the actual scars to prove they survived the battle. Theory doesn't bleed. Lived experience does.
Okay, so let's say you've mastered this. You have the Viking persona dialed in, you are utilizing your invisible list, you are ignoring the jargon, and you are speaking directly to those 2 a.m. raw questions. You start gaining traction. But the sources reveal there is a hidden ceiling.
A very sneaky ceiling.
A psychological trapdoor that violently stops people from reaching the next level of success. And it has absolutely nothing to do with YouTube algorithms or business strategy or marketing funnels.
It has to do with your underwear.
Yeah. I've been waiting to get to this. We have to talk about the underwear. This might be the most surprising part of the entire deep dive. Let's explore the concept of energy leaks.
This concept is deeply rooted in behavioral psychology, specifically a phenomenon often referred to as the upper limit problem, popularized by psychologists like Gay Hendricks.
What does that mean exactly?
The foundational idea is that every single human being has a subconscious internal thermostat for how much success, how much joy, how much love, or how much wealth we genuinely believe we are allowed to experience.
And when things start going too well, when you start standing in your Viking truth, your content is hitting, and you are making real substantial money, that thermostat panics.
It overloads.
Yeah, the nervous system literally freaks out because the new reality exceeds the programmed baseline.
Exactly. You hit your upper limit, your subconscious perceives this new success as a threat to your familiar identity, and you begin to self-sabotage to bring the temperature back down to what feels safe.
Like what kind of sabotage?
You might suddenly pick a massive fight with your partner, you might mysteriously get sick, or you might get hit with a tidal wave of imposter syndrome and completely stop posting videos just as your channel takes off.
But how do we raise that thermostat? How do we reprogram the baseline? This is where Alexa's highly specific, almost absurd example comes in. She talks about the concept of energy leaks, which is the act of tolerating minor, seemingly insignificant stressors in your daily physical life. And her prime example is wearing old, worn-out, uncomfortable underwear every single day.
What's fascinating here is the deep psychology of environment as information. We are conditioned to think of our physical environment as just the dead space around us,
Right, it's just stuff.
We think our thoughts dictate our reality. But in cognitive behavioral psychology, the flow of information is bidirectional. To your subconscious mind, every single object you interact with is a data point. It is continuous environmental feedback informing your fundamental identity.
I can hear the skeptics right now because I was one of them when I read this. Come on,
Yeah.
The subconscious cares about old underwear. Who cares? Nobody sees it. It's under my clothes. This sounds like woo-woo manifestation talk.
I understand the skepticism,
Yeah.
but let's apply the broken windows theory to the human psyche. When a city leaves a broken window unfixed, it signals to the subconscious of the populace that order is abandoned, which breeds larger crimes.
Okay, that makes sense.
The same applies internally. When you accept a chronically low standard in your private physical environment, whether it's wearing worn-out basics, forcing your feet into shoes that pinch, dealing with a squeaky door you refuse to oil for 6 months, or working at a constantly cluttered desk, you are broadcasting a continuous, low-grade, highly destructive signal to your own brain.
You are sending a signal of low self-worth.
Precisely. You are whispering to your subconscious all day long. This is what I deserve. I am not worthy of care. I am not worthy of a premium, frictionless experience.
Which creates a massive, unsustainable cognitive dissonance. Because think about the business side. You are going on camera. You are trying to project this unshakable, Viking-like authority. You are asking clients to pay you thousands of dollars because you ostensibly value your own worth and your time. But then you log off, walk into your bedroom, and tolerate absolute uncomfortable mediocrity in how you treat your own physical body.
It is entirely incongruent, and your nervous system is incredibly smart. It knows when you are living a lie. You simply cannot sustain an expansive, high-ticket business reality if your private, physical, daily reality is deeply rooted in scarcity, friction, and low self-worth. The subconscious will always win that tug of war.
It's like trying to run high-end, next-generation, incredibly demanding software, which is your new Viking persona, on a computer with a corrupted, outdated operating system, which is your daily energy leaks. It doesn't matter how good the software is. Eventually, the system is going to overheat and crash.
You just crash.
You will burn out, or you will initiate that upper limit self-sabotage.
That is a perfect technical analogy for a very real physiological phenomenon. You have to upgrade the hardware, your daily lived experience, your environment, the way you treat yourself in private, to support the massive energetic processing demands of your new ambition.
Okay, we have covered some incredibly heavy psychological ground today. We have gone from diagnosing the midlife slump to staring down the tarantula of the autonomic nervous system, to dropping the professional mask, mapping our past pain into proof capital, and now, finally, auditing our underwear to fix our subconscious energy leaks.
It is a rigorous, holistic curriculum. It touches every part of your life.
It truly is the most intense personal development course out there. But let's bring it all down to earth for the person listening who is ready to actually do the work. Let's give the listener the exact tools Alexa recommends to start this mask incinerating process today. We have the Truth Rebel Action Plan, 3 specific, non-negotiable actions you can take immediately to shift your trajectory.
Number 1 directly addresses the hardware upgrade we just discussed. Conduct an energy audit.
Right. Look around your physical life today. Walk through your house, look at your desk, look in your closet. Identify one minor, persistent physical stressor that you have been unconsciously tolerating.
And it does not have to be a massive, expensive overhaul. It is about the symbolic, psychological act of raising your internal standard. Throw out the shoes that give you blisters. Buy a new high-quality set of premium basics. Take 10 minutes and fix that squeaky door that sends a spike of irritation through your body every time you open it.
It's a small win.
It is. The goal is to take a tangible, physical action in the real world that signals to your subconscious mind, I deserve a frictionless, high-quality experience. You are closing an energy leak and clawing back that bandwidth.
Okay, action step number 2. This one is undoubtedly my favorite because it is terrifying. The heart palpitation challenge.
This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we stress test the Viking principle.
The challenge is to sit down with a pen and paper and write out 3 strong opinions you hold about your industry, your niche, or your area of expertise that you are absolutely terrified to say out loud in public. These are the controversial thoughts you only share privately with your best friend after a glass of wine when you know nobody else is listening.
These are the opinions where your inner approval seeker is screaming at you to keep quiet because you might upset the status quo or alienate your peers.
Exactly. You write those 3 dangerous opinions down. Then you look at them, you pick the single most unfiltered, sweat-inducing, heart-palpitating one on the list, and you integrate it into your very next piece of content. Or, if you aren't a creator, you bring it up in your very next board meeting. You unleash it into the world.
You step definitively out of safe content and into brave content. You allow yourself to be polarizing in order to be magnetic. You're intentionally inviting the unsubscribed filter to do its job, trusting that the people who align with your truth will step forward to replace the ones who leave.
I love it. It is exposure therapy for the ego. And finally, action step number 3, which might be the hardest one of all in 2026. Take an input fast.
This is arguably the most crucial step for modern professionals, because we are all suffering from information toxicity. The directive is to ruthlessly mute external noise for 1 full week. No social media scrolling, no news consumption, no reading business books, and frankly, maybe even pausing audio shows like this one for a few days.
Wait, don't tell them to turn us off.
Just for 7 days. I promise we'll be here when they get back. But the physiological premise here is profound. Our dopamine systems are hijacked. When you are constantly consuming the thoughts, strategies, and highly curated lives of other people, you are flooding your brain with external data.
You're just absorbing.
Yes, and in doing so, you completely drown out the faint, quiet signal of your own internal compass.
You mistake consumption for creation. You feel like you are doing work because you are learning, but you are actually just suppressing your own voice.
Exactly.
There is a beautiful allegorical story in the sources that Alexa shares about this exact trap. She was doing a guided meditative journey, feeling totally torn, burnt out, and stressed about her business metrics, her funnels, and her strategy.
A very relatable feeling.
Yeah. In this visualization, she meets an old sage in a barren, hot, miserable desert.
And the sage gives her a seemingly impossible command. He tells her, make this a lush forest.
Right. And her immediate reaction is to do what we all do. She tries to use her brain. She tries to force the outcome. She intensely visualizes trees. She tries to mentally command the grass to grow through sheer willpower. She even tries to force the clouds to rain.
She's working so hard.
She is strategizing, optimizing, analyzing, sweating over the details, doing all the exhausting things we do in our careers to force success, and absolutely nothing works. It remains a hot, miserable, dead desert.
Because she is operating from the ego. And the sage tells her, you are stuck in your head. You are trying too hard to engineer the result.
So she pivots. She tries to get into her heart. She tries to feel her way into making the forest grow, but she still can't force it to appear. Finally, out of pure exhaustion, she just gives up trying to produce a result.
She surrenders.
Yeah. She asks if she can just sit next to the sage on a boulder and rest. She stops strategizing. She stops trying to figure out what she should be doing according to the experts. She just relaxes her nervous system and exists.
She surrenders the need to control the environment and allows herself to just be.
And the exact moment she stops forcing it, the exact moment she just relaxes and is herself, the boulder under her gets warm, the harsh sky turns a deep, beautiful blue, an ocean appears on the horizon, the sun begins to set, and a massive, lush, vibrant tropical forest blossoms all around them completely effortlessly.
And the sage simply tells her, "You just are." It is a stunning metaphor for the devastating danger of the input trap. We think we need more information to grow the forest. But great ideas, true innovation, and radical magnetic authenticity do not come when you are glued to a screen consuming other people's strategy.
These don't come from forcing it.
No, they do not come when you are forcing a persona. They come in the silence. They arrive when you finally step back, disconnect from the relentless noise of the tribe, and allow yourself to actually hear the quiet whisper of your own intuition.
I want to challenge you, the listener, right now. Look honestly at your own life and your daily habits. Where are you drowning out your own intuition with a relentless flood of external input? Where are you trying to force a lush forest to grow using metrics, analytics, and strategies you borrowed from someone else, when what you really need is to just sit on the rocks, shut out the noise, and be who you actually are?
When you remove the constant paralyzing comparison and the deafening noise of what everyone else in your industry is doing, your true Viking-like voice naturally rises to the surface. It is buoyant by nature. That is the true power of the input fast.
This has been an unbelievable, paradigm-shifting deep dive. We started this hour by asking a seemingly crazy question. Could a simple camera lens really be the ultimate personal development tool? And I think by breaking down the neuroscience of fear, the psychology of environment, and the economics of authenticity, we have completely proven that it is.
I agree.
Whether you are building a brand on YouTube, delivering a keynote presentation in a boardroom, or just analyzing how you show up in your closest relationships, putting yourself out there is not about chasing algorithms or going viral.
No, it is a brutal, beautiful, inescapable mirror that demands you face your deepest fears of judgment and inadequacy.
It is about dropping the exhausting professional act. It is about stepping out of the invisible, safe content of people-pleasing and standing fiercely in your unshakable Viking-like truth. Because ultimately, your lived experience, your unique struggles, your awkwardness, the scars you earned in the valley, and your specific 2 a.m. raw questions, that is exactly the medicine someone else out there in the dark is desperately searching for.
Which brings us perfectly back to the image we started with. I want you to think about the mask you put on this morning. Think about the perfectly polished, stiff shoes you laced up to wear to work, to that important meeting, or even to interact with your own extended family. I want you to ask yourself a very serious question. What is it actively costing you in daily physical energy, in joy, in revenue, and in true human connection to constantly maintain that curated character? And what would happen if, tomorrow morning, you decided to leave the stiff shoes in the closet, stare directly into the brutal mirror, and just show up as the Viking version of yourself instead?